The U.S. men's national team March Nation League fixtures are in the books, and the United States have safely advanced, although it was getting a little dicey there for a bit against El Salvador in Orlando. They've advanced to the Nation League semifinals, which will take place in Las Vegas. Road trip in June. We shall see how that looks. The U.S. will be looking to defend their Nations League or repeat as Nation League winners as they did it in 2021. That was down there in Denver. So now we do it again at Allegiant Stadium, which is really a spectacular place to watch a football match. I was there for the Gold Cup final. Looking forward to seeing that again. But let's talk about how we got there. 2 games here over the last 4 days in Grenada, where the United States scored 7 goals. Don't want to undermine that too much. But I know everyone's prefacing it by saying, well, I know it was Grenada. But the U.S. beating teams soundly on the road in CONCACAF is kind of a big deal, because we've made such a big deal about whether it's Grenada or Honduras or El Salvador or Trinidad and Tobago, how hard it is to win in CONCACAF on the road. And the U.S. eased into that and slammed it shut. A much trickier situation against El Salvador, and we'll talk a little bit about El Salvador as well. To me, looking like a World Cup team. So very exciting for what Hugo Perez is doing, nationalizing players, etc. But it wasn't a work of art. The U.S. did something a little different in formation under Anthony Hudson. So again, I'm not leaving with a taste in our mouth. But this could have gotten worse. It could have gotten worse. Certainly in the first half, there were some alarm bells ringing. And the U.S. were able to fix things in half number 2, get the 3 points, keep El Salvador in second, and move into the semifinals. So today on the Soccer OG, check out the Soccer OG podcast, where all podcasts are available, where you get your favorite podcasts. We're going to talk a little bit about the U.S. men's national team. And I was also in my MLS duty talking about St. Louis City. And we're going to have Joey Zanaboni on there, who is the St. Louis City radio broadcaster. We're going to talk about the big hullabaloo about this new club in this incredible city that loves the sport. Check that out, the Soccer OG podcast. Like and subscribe us here as well. Join the party. Be an OG. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment there in the comment section, and I do my best to respond. Very good, intelligent banter going on there. So let us get into this El Salvador game. And I'm going to include a few loose ends that the U.S. have to resolve before the Nations League semifinals. Get a sporting director. Hire a coach. It might be Anthony Hudson. And we'll see what happens with Folarin Balogun. And he was in Orlando. There's a lot of indicators, as I said in my last video, that he is going to swear his allegiance to the U.S. The latest is he's wiped the board with regards to his connection to England. And this really, I think, comes down to wanting to play. He would be behind Victor Osimhen for the next 5-6 years if he went to Nigeria. England, there's so many forwards, and I thought it was really refreshing what Gareth Southgate said. And I am not going to undermine Gareth Southgate in any way. He has earned the respect. He is an excellent coach. He is better than any coach we've had here in the U.S. So if he says that Folarin Balogun isn't in the plans for England, that gives me a little pause, because we are doing backflips, and rightfully so, because we need a forward, and we hope he can be the solution to all our problems. But very upfront from Southgate, saying we haven't seen enough, doesn't play in the Premier League, there's a pecking order, and he's behind these guys. If Balogun impressed him the way he impressed us, he would be on that squad somewhere. I think they would find a place for him. But he says, we don't just call people in to cap tie them. I thought that was really refreshing to hear him say that. So, Folarin Balogun looks like he's heading to the U.S., and he would be the number 1 in the striker depth chart, although we saw something from Ricardo Pepi here that he certainly wants a claim at that job as well. So, let's take a look at the starting 11 in Orlando. They went with a 4-2-3-1, Matt Turner in goal, Anthony Robinson, Serginho Dest were the fullbacks. Great to see Dest back. Those are our number 1 pairing at fullbacks. Dest was, I'm excited about Brian Reynolds, but Dest was miles better than Reynolds, who has a lot of work to do, in my opinion. He didn't make the squad on this game. Very raw. Did not help him with his performance in Grenada. He got beat a couple times, so it is Dest's job, and he is much better than any other right back we have. The two in the midfield, Yunus Musa McKennie, Gio Reyna playing more of like a 10. And he had Alejandro Zendejas on his right, Christian Pulisic on his left. Daryl Dike was your forward. And then we'll talk about the subs. So, pretty grim first 45 minutes. It was a very physical game. We saw Anthony Hudson talk to the referees to try and protect his players. Hard challenges, lots of stoppages. The United States had 7 changes in the starting 11. A lot of the regulars coming in here from the Grenada match. 8 of the 11 starters were on the World Cup roster, so we saw a little bit more semblance of normalcy. I did want to mention, I thought Miles Robinson coming back had some really nice moments. A lot was made about he was the only MLS player on the roster, and when he didn't make the starting 11, how it was the first time in ages that there hasn't been an MLS player. I know some people said that with glee, but let's remember, and let's be respectful of Major League Soccer, because they birthed so many of these players. DK, Zendejas was an FC Dallas product, as was Weston McKennie at one point. Miles Robinson, obviously. Tim Ream, Matt Turner, Joe Scally, Brian Reynolds. There was a lot of guys on this roster that had MLS starts. So let's embrace it. This is all together. All right? We're all together on this. So it was a rough situation there, certainly. And I want to talk about El Salvador really quickly because they really impressed me. And with the 2026 World Cup, the region of CONCACAF is going to get at least 6 teams, including the 3 hosts, USA, Mexico, Canada. So 3 additional teams, maybe a 7th. And the way I see it and how they have improved since the last time we saw them, and they also have this trio of brothers in the Gil brothers, who's the father, Christian Gil, a Colombian, played in El Salvador. His sons were born there, and they all represent El Salvador. And there are different levels of good, but those 3 guys bring a lot. The naturalized guys as well there, like an Alex Roldan, that give this El Salvador an edge. I believe they're going to qualify for the 2026 World Cup. I believe they will be somewhere like 5 or 6 and make it to 2026. And what an incredible moment that would be for the El Salvadorian public, the big community we have in the United States. I would be thrilled to see that. Still got to do some work, but man, stock is up on El Salvador. They showed they weren't going to get pushed around. They had some chances on goal. This was a very good, well-coached outfit. And I would, we talk about a future manager for the U.S. Why not Hugo Perez? He represented this country. And with some of the options starting to slim out, I don't think he's going to leave El Salvador. Now, that's a guy I think the U.S. certainly could identify. He has proved that he is the goods. So yeah, there was a physical game. Lots of set pieces for the U.S. Didn't do a lot. I thought it was nice to see Alejandro Zendejas take some of the set pieces. Pulisic, who was very good at set pieces in the Grenada game, had some nice moments, but still, with the volume of corners and free kicks, you want a little bit more from that. But this was hard. This was very hard for this team. And I get it may be a bad matchup, but this was... I was a little surprised that the U.S. couldn't shake them. And at halftime, I was getting a little nervous, and I actually thought for a moment, could we have the Nations League without the U.S.? It took one good Salvadorian chance. And Dueñas wearing the number 10 and Christian Gil Jr. Was wearing the number 9. Those 2 guys were getting close. Those guys were getting a little bit close. Let's talk about the forwards. By the way, I try to go into some kind of chronological or some sort of order here. Well, let's talk about the forwards. Daryl Dike got the start. Ricardo Pepi got the start against Grenada, had 2 goals. We take that with a grain of salt because it was Grenada. But this is another opportunity where Daryl Dike just looked like he didn't fit. I don't think it's a Dike talent thing. I think it is a USA thing. Much like Jordan Pefok, he just doesn't fit in what the U.S. are doing. He was invisible in the first half. Had a couple moments in the second where he tried to break through. There was a moment where Gio Reyna had that shot and hit the post. He could have passed it to Daryl Dike, and who knows if Daryl Dike scores there, I'm having a different conversation. But Daryl Dike just doesn't look like he fits. And I don't know if we want to keep bringing him back because there's too many other mouths to feed, right? I have a pecking order. Let's assume Folarin Balogun, Flo, comes to the U.S. He would be number 1. Ricardo Pepi's number 2 as the number 9. Now, there's a possibility, and people were talking about it on social media, that the U.S. play with 2 forwards. I just don't think that's feasible, because that means one of your wingers, whether it be, it's not going to be Pulisic, but if it's Weah or Zendejas or Taylor Booth, who looks pretty solid, if it's any of those guys, I think you take away from that team. You want to play with those 2 wingers. And look, or you may have to lose Gio Reyna. I don't think that's something the U.S. wants to pursue. So we're going to play with 1 forward. Balogun and Pepe would be interesting as a partnership. I just don't think it's going to happen. 3, Josh Sargent, not on this roster. 4, Haji Wright, scoring a lot in Turkey. He is my number 5. I'm going to put Brandon Vasquez at 5. Not on this roster. Was there in January, scored a goal. I think he has a very good upside. Jesus Ferreira at 6 can give you something a little different. I don't want to put him out of this mix by any means. Then Daryl Dike at 7, Jordan Pefok at 8. I don't think there's a big gap from, say, certainly 5 to 8, maybe 4 to 8. So those are the guys. Dike, I have 6 guys in front of him. So where do you bring him in? It's not working. That's the nature of this business. So unfortunately, we have to push forward. So second half starts. DK would eventually come out. He had, there was Alejandro Zendejas chip that was close, and then the subs came in. 66th minute, Brendan Aronson for Zendejas. Zendejas wasn't great, but I've seen enough, and we got him cap tied. That was good. Zendejas and Booth are sticking around for my U.S. men's national team. Booth is a spectacular athlete, and I love how he got the bloody nose, right? And he was out there, and he kept playing. It wouldn't stop bleeding. Bleed is on his USA shirt. Those are fantastic optics. We like that. So those 2 guys are sticking around. They will be on any World Cup roster. At this point, it's very early to do that. Let's say he'll be on a Copa America roster. He'll be on that Nations League roster as well in June. So Zendejas didn't play great. No one really played great offensively. This was a grind. It was very messy. But then those 2 substitutions, Pepe for DK. Pepe comes in and scores 12 seconds after he came in. He had a chance to score at least 2 more, which I would have liked to have seen him finish. He probably should have had 2 goals. And I think we have to hold him at a high standard and say, Ricardo, you got to have scored there. But he's been excellent, and we can have that debate why he wasn't called to the World Cup. I think we can say that was a mistake. I think we all agree that probably was. But water under the bridge. We're moving forward. We're not looking back. And Pepe, I think, gets that. And if nothing else, if something good came out of it, clearly a fire has been lit under his feet. So that is all good. The Gio Reyna, I think he looks really good in that position. And I think it's something they have to kick the tires on. The guy's got to pass the ball a little more. That ball's on his foot way too much. And it's dribbling, and then I go, pass the ball. He's drawing attention, pass the ball. Otherwise, he did well. But he's got to pass the ball. So I get it. I get it. You know, that's his strength. But that timing's got to click. But he's done well for himself over these 2 games. I thought he was one of the better performers in the El Salvador game. Musa McKennie assisted the Ricardo Pepi goal. A very nice finish. So 3 goals in 2 games for Pepi. We're happy about that. The Taylor Booth came in the 71st minute for Gio Reyna. Luca Della Torre came in for Yunus Musa. Not enough time for either one of those guys to make an impression, and neither did. They didn't make an impact whatsoever. Della Torre very good against Grenada, but there was no pressure on him like we saw again here. So finally, Johnny Cardoso, who also got cap tied, in addition to Alejandro Zendejas, came in for Weston McKennie in the dying embers. So, good. It was a bit of a grind, but it was a good result. And like the U.S. has been doing in this last cycle, getting results, winning trophies, getting results along the way. You compare it to what Mexico's going through, tying Jamaica, struggling at Suriname. The U.S. is the best in the region, and I expect them to repeat as Nation League winners. Mexico has to be mesmerized by what the U.S. is doing. And now with Zendejas, I mean, come on. That was a screw-up for Mexico. So that's good. Defensively, good to see Tim Ream back. Miles Robinson, solid. Fullbacks were good. Matt Turner, congratulations. He has a little baby on the way. That was a little odd at the end with this PA announcer screaming like it was a WWE show. I don't know. So let's quickly look at it. Sporting director should be coming soon. Balogun should be coming soon. Anthony Hudson, did he get the job? He's gotten a better position. If he gets Balogun, I think that alone probably should give him a look. There's not that many great candidates. This is what happens with national team managers. An interim guy, someone gets in, and all of a sudden they're in. It happens all the time. You're not going to get the elite managers, but maybe Anthony Hudson is a good fit. I don't think he did himself any favors in the El Salvador game, but overall what he has done, I think he is a legit candidate. And if you don't want to ruffle feathers, and if you don't want to go there and spend $10 million on a new guy, I can guarantee you the United States do not want to spend that, and they are not going to spend that on a Jose Mourinho or Zidane or what have you. So they may have gotten lucky with this. I think the public's okay with Anthony Hudson. I wouldn't want him to be the guy, but he has exceeded all expectations with what he's been able to do. So that should be interesting moving forward. And everything's interesting for the United States right now. And we will continue to talk about it right here on the Soccer OG. Check out the Soccer OG podcast where all podcasts are available. Like and subscribe us here. And we'll be back here soon enough. June will be here in an instant. We have the game against Mexico in April. Let's go. Let's go.